Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another Instant Deck Tech. So as you know, Thursday means it's Tier Thursday, but once again we're stretching the definition a little bit this week. Instead, we're heading to Legacy to check out a super sweet and, for the format, super budget deck that I'm calling Deep Reanimator. It's basically mashing together two different combos and looking to kill the opponent really quickly. As you can see, this one comes from EW Landon, who took it to a 5-0 finish in a competitive Legacy League on Magic Online. So congrats to EW Landon on their finish with the deck. And a quick reminder before we break down Deep Reanimator for Legacy. If you enjoy this deck and you want to see it made into videos, take a minute, click the like button, the subscribe button, leave a comment, anything you can do to support your deck, because whichever deck is most popular gets a shot at being made into videos next week. So before we talk about the deck itself, it's worth pointing out $824 is about as cheap as it gets for Legacy, as far as a deck that actually has some history for performing on a tournament level. When you consider most decks $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $824 is actually super cheap for the format. I know it's not cheap for a normal person, but it is cheap compared to what a typical Legacy deck costs. Anyway, let's break down this dual combo deck. So first off, kind of plan A of the deck is to reanimate something really big really quickly. And the most important thing for this plan is being able to get something big in the graveyard. Can't reanimate it unless it's in the graveyard. So our most direct way to do this is Entomb. Just 1 mana, we tutor our library for a card, put it in our graveyard. But Collector Brutality and Thoughtseize also help on that front as well. And they're very good in the deck because we can use it on our opponent to strip away a Force of Will or something else that can interact with our plan, but we can also use it to get a card in our graveyard. Collector Brutality, we just get to discard a card for the escalate cost. Thoughtseize, while it sounds weird, we can turn it on ourselves if we're looking to get a turn 1 Grizzlebrand or Grave Titan into play. The second part of the deck is having things to get the creature from our graveyard back in the battlefield. For this, we turn to Reanimate, which is the most efficient option in the format. It's a little risky because we lose a lot of life. If we reanimate a 6-drop, we lose 6 life, 8-drop, 8 life, but still, it lets us get our creature on the battlefield as soon as turn 1, thanks to some of our fast mana. Exhume, 2 mana, but doesn't have any life loss. Technically symmetrical, but on turn 1, turn 2, unlikely our opponent will actually have a creature in their graveyard to get back. And then Unburial Rites, a little weird in Legacy, but it does give us a backup reanimation spell. And we do have just a tiny splash of white mana, so in theory, we can discard it to a Collector Brutality, or even just use it twice. Cast it once, cast it again, reanimate 2 things for just 1 card. So what are we reanimating? Here we have 2 options. One is Grizzledaddy. Grizzlebrand, just the best reanimation target in the history of Magic. You get a huge lifelinking flyer, it draws us a ton of cards, so we draw into more reanimation spells and Thoughtseizes to protect it, and then it closes out the game really quickly, and the lifelink helps put the game out of reach against aggressive decks. And then Grave Titan is a really sneaky reanimation target. When we get this on turn 1, it's really hard for the opponent to win, because it creates so much value immediately. 10 power and toughness across 3 bodies, and then every time we attack with it, we get more. So it really puts the opponent to the test. They either have to kill it right away, and even if they kill it right away, we still have the zombies left behind, which on turn 1 could still potentially win us the game. And if it doesn't get killed right away, it's only a couple of turns of attacking for Grave Titan to 20 our opponent. So that's kind of the reanimation plan of the deck, but we also have a second combo. We have Vampire Hexmage, Dark Depths, and Thespian Stage. So we're not really focused on putting this together, although we can do some trickiness where we entomb for a Vampire Hexmage and then reanimate that if we have a Dark Depths in hand. But the combo here is Vampire Hexmage can sack to remove all counters from something. If we do that targeting our own Dark Depths, it removes all the counters, and we get a 20/20 flying indestructible Merit Lage. So in theory, we can do this as early as turn 2 in our deck, or even turn 1 if we get the nut draw. And a turn 1 Merit Lage is going to close out most games in Legacy super quick, and it's really sweet to be able to potentially have a tutor in Entomb and then reanimate the Vampire Hexmage to get it done. We can also just randomly draw a Thespian Sage, which kind of works like Vampire Hexmage. It lets us make a copy of Dark Depths, and since Dark Depths enters the battlefield with the counters, and Thespian Sage will already be on the battlefield, it'll be a copy of Dark Depths with no counters on it, so we just sack it, get the 20/20, not quite as fast as Vampire Hexmage, but still still another fairly quick way to get a really big threat. So if we're not winning by reanimating Grizzlebrand and Grave Titan, we can always just backdoor our way into this second combo and kill our opponent with a Merit Lage token. The last part of the deck, which is pretty spicy, is our fast mana. So we got Lotus Petals and Dark Rituals, and these are really powerful for letting us reanimate on turn 1. If we have a Swamp, a Lotus Petal, and Entomb, a Reanimate in our hand, those 4 cards combine to give us a turn 1 Grizzlebrand, turn 1 Grave Titan. Dark Ritual lets us do the same thing, but we can do it with an Exhume instead of a Reanimate. So they help there. The other neat thing about our fast mana, when it's combined with Lake of the Dead, which is this weird land that lets us sack a swamp to add 4 mana, it also taps for a black on its own, but we do have to sack a swamp when it enters the battlefield. But combined with that, Lake of the Dead plus Dark Rituals and Lotus Petals, it's not impossible that by like turn 3 we just are hard casting Grizzlebrands and Grave Titans. So we have a backup plan of just hardcasting these really big threats early in the game thanks to Lake of the Dead. So it's really cool that there's so many different ways of cheating these huge things into play so quickly, and that's basically the whole idea of the deck. We're just hoping that one way or another, we're going to do something really big by like turn 2 or turn 3, and our opponent won't be able to deal with it, and we win the game on the spot regardless of what they're doing. As far as the mana base, a couple of fetch lands, a single scrub land is our dual. We don't have any white in the main deck except for the flashback of Unburial Rites, but we do have a white card in the sideboard, and then some swamps. In the sideboard, we have Pithing Needle and Duress, which are kind of just all-purpose ways to protect ourselves from what our opponent's doing. Needle shuts down Planeswalkers, shuts down Wastelands. Duress attacks our opponent's hand directly, taking a Force of Will or something like that. We have some creature answers, Massacre, basically the black Pyroclasm, except it's free if our opponent's playing a white deck, if they control a plane, so against like Death and Taxes or something. Toxic Deluge, really cheap Wrath, and Dread of Night, also very good against Death and Taxes and other white-based deck. Gets rid of all the Lingering Souls tokens, Thalias, all that stuff, because it just is a static -1/-1 for white creatures. And finally, Coffin Purge and Surgical Extraction let us deal with graveyard stuff from our opponent. Seal of Cleansing, our other white card, a way to deal with artifacts and enchantments, which black doesn't really have, so it's nice to have the ability to kill an Ensnaring Bridge, kill a Leyline of the Void, a Rest in Peace that's shutting down our graveyard. And then Rite of Consumption looks pretty weird, but it's a way we can gain some life and can also just kill our opponent by flinging, essentially, our Grizzlebrand, our Grave Titan at our opponent's face. And that is Deep Reanimator for Legacy, and that's our instant deck tech for today. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up on all the latest and greatest, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to, check out some of our other sweet videos here and here.